Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio .world in our special broadcast of the impact of the coronavirus pandemic on South Seattle and surrounding communities. We do this from 1 o'clock till 3 o'clock every Friday, and we'll continue for the foreseeable future. We did start doing this on March 13th. So shortly after Governor Inslee instituted the stay-at-home mandate and several of the other things that at that time we just weren't sure what was going to happen. Now, we're still not sure where the pandemic is taking us, how our responses are going to impact our future generations, how the way we deal with this right now will affect us even maybe this summer and this fall. We do know, though, that the impact has been horrific for some folks. We do know that the coronavirus can hit anyone. We also know that this concept of we're all in this together is not necessarily true. We are all susceptible to the virus, but there are communities who are far more impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. Essentially just racism that existed before has exacerbated during the coronavirus. We're talking today with a group of folks who are going to tackle an issue that, for purposes of this show, I'm calling predatory buying. Now, if you haven't heard about what's going on, essentially there are buyers, investors, who at this time are being very aggressive about contacting, in particular, seniors in the Central District, seniors in South Seattle. Some are calling it harassment. We've got some folks here who are going to give it to you in their own words about buying their property. If you are not familiar with gentrification is essentially when people who have lived in a community are replaced due to rents, prices. They can no longer afford to live there, and other folks come in and buy the property. The other folks are generally white. The communities that are displaced are people of color, poor communities, black communities. You may have heard about this in regards to the Central District. It's happening in South Seattle. That may also be something that we touch on and debate, or in some instances hear opinions about this, but we are certainly going to discuss this trend that is taking place and what a few people in our community are doing about it, why they are acting in the way that they are in regards to approaching, again, what I'm calling predatory buying. Some of you may see it differently. Some of you may see it as taking advantage of the opportunity that presents itself. We're going to have these discussions today right here on Rainier Avenue Radio .world during our coronavirus pandemic special program. A couple of things that I do want to mention. For grads, 2020, look, we know that you're not going to have the graduation you've been looking for since the day that you entered into your school. And we want to do something special for you. So if you're a friend of a grad, parent, family member, write us at rainieravenueradio.world@gmail.com. We're going to be bigging up and shouting out our 2020 grads, whether you're a high school grad or a college grad, and particularly if you are connected to South Seattle. We're going to be airing your story, sharing your narrative, your pictures, through our news broadcast, through promotions that we're going to be running specifically for grads, both on air and through our social media platforms. We're going to be bigging up our 2020 grads. You certainly deserve it. Y'all have been through a lot of ish, okay? And we just want to do our part. So if you're a parent out there, send it in. We're going to put some things together and put them out there for the public so that they can recognize our 2020 grads. We're excited about doing that. So contact us at rainieravenueradio.world@gmail.com. so that we can get information on your grad, a picture, background. We'll even put your voice on the air talking about your grad in production that we're going to put together. This is absolutely free. This is just something that we want to do for our graduating class. Again, Rainier Avenue Radio.world at gmail.com in celebration of our graduating class, which of course has been impacted by this coronavirus pandemic. So I believe I just want to make sure who I have with me on the air right now. Councilmember Girmay Zahilay. Councilmember Zahilay, are you with us?
I'm with you, Tony B. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
All right. And then also Ruby Holland. Ruby, are you with me?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruby. Cynthia Andrews. Cynthia, are you here?
I am with you. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. And I know that we'll have other folks joining us. The South Seattle Emerald. Marcus had a last minute, very important thing that he had to do. And he is getting somebody else to fill in for him. I think Chukundi Salisbury will be joining us as well. Currently not in, and a couple of other folks. But we're going to go ahead and get started with this conversation. And I'm going to start off with you, Councilmember Zahilay. And this is something that I'm just saying. During this time, your first period in office, in public office, your enthusiasm, your energy, your dedication to community, your being available, your being visible has been an injection into our community. And we appreciate what you're doing and what you've done. And I know that you did not want to walk into a situation where you were dealing with a pandemic, but replacing a revered member of the community whose history is intrinsic with Central and South Seattle and the Black community. It's a lot to take on. And I just want to commend you for the service that you've done. And anybody who disagrees is free to also voice their opinion. But Councilmember Zahilay, just wanted to thank you for that.
Wow, Tony B, coming from you, that means everything to me. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And we'll keep getting to work.
Well, let's start about what I'm talking about here on the radio. I'm calling it predatory buying. There may be another name for it. Again, other folks may see it as taking advantage of opportunity. Let's start with your feedback on what this show is about and why you're here, and essentially your position on what's taking place. And I know that Ruby is going to have a specific position, and Cynthia and some of the other folks as well. But this is how I'm describing it. What is your position on what is taking place right now? And there's no denying that it's taking place where you have folks, investors, whatever, who are trying to purchase property. And in particular, from elderly Black members of the community that's already been gentrified.
In short, Tony B, I'm against it. And I want to give a big shout out to the people who are on this line, who are leaders on this topic. Cynthia, especially Miss Ruby, who is really doing some amazing work in the Central District and is an incredible leader for us here in Seattle and King County. We have to ask ourselves, is housing a public good that provides shelter and the foundation for people's lives, or is it an investment vehicle? We have to answer that question. If it's an investment vehicle and that's all it is, then yeah, people should go out and buy as much property as they can and push people out and not care about people. That's not the kind of world that I want to live in. That's not the kind of world that I don't think anybody on this call wants to live in. People are taking advantage of people's fears and insecurity about their income status in light of the pandemic. And after every recession, after every crisis, what we see is Black people being pushed out of an area and developers coming in and buying up as much property as they can so that they can make a quick buck. That's not what I want to see. That's not what we will allow, and we will fight against that as much as possible. And I had somebody actually ask me a question when I pushed back on this dynamic, and they said, "What's the problem? This is a free market. Why can't people just buy what they can? And people are agreeing to it. Why not?" And this goes back to literally what I learned in basic law school. If you want a free market, you have to have a willing buyer, a willing seller, and no coercion. You can't coerce people. When people are afraid, when people are being pressured, when people are coming to your door with a purchase and sale agreement, when you're not sure and you don't have all the information and support you need, of course, maybe you'll sell. That's not a free market. That is coercion, and that's what we're pushing back against.
Thank you, Councilmember Zahilay. And also joining us on the phone, as I mentioned before, is Ruby Holland. Ruby, thank you for joining us and bringing this to attention. Right now, I want to give you the room to talk about what has happened to you, what's been happening to you, and why this is so important to you, Ruby. Well, I'm going to go ahead and give you the platform here before I get to my other guests, just really quickly to talk about the genesis of this for you.
Well, I lived in Atlanta for a period of time, and I returned to Seattle, my childhood home, to the family home that we've been in since '63. And they were about to vote on the up zones. And so somebody told me that the houses were going to be, people were going to be at risk of displacement. And, immediately I started working on that and started doing research and started going to city hall meetings. Well, in the end, when all the dust settled, all the up zones were mostly in the central area and the CD. In other words, they were wanting us to sell our homes for affordability while the rest of Seattle looked on like nothing happened. And I didn't think that was fair. There's not a lot of Black people that own homes anymore. When I left the CD, they all did. It was so many homeowners. When I got back, it was so few. And for them to have a government sanctioned program to get rid of more of our homes, I thought was unconscionable. The developers were ringing our bells, calling us, coming by, doing everything they could. A lot of them were predatory, telling us things were wrong with our houses. Then the investors, I didn't even know about them. I got a call from an investor about a couple of months ago, which I'm sure you read about in the Times. And they're definitely preying on people because of the COVID-19. They figure people are scared, so they'll get rid of their homes. Also, I opened up a Facebook account just to encourage people to hold on to their homes. I saw on Facebook just recently so many people trying to get us to sell our homes, so many people wanting to sell for quick cash. And I had a friend had warned me that anybody trying to get you to sell your home for cash is really out to rip you off. So after the newspaper article came out, about 75% of those people that were on Facebook trying to get us to sell our homes, those people just disappeared. There's still a few, but not like it was. Also, Tony, a lot of the people that used to have homes in the CD, now they're really catching, really having a hard time out there. They're renting, rents are going up. Some of them are couch surfing. One lady called me and she wanted to know about selling her home. She had been pressured to, and I wrote her up a little something that reasons why it wasn't a good idea to sell her home. And a lot of Facebook people, I got some good remarks on that. So I'd like to read it to you and to all of our listeners. It's not that long. Reasons to not sell your Seattle property. Renting in Seattle is problematic with sky-high rents and annual rent increases. Going to assisted living is dangerous at this time due to COVID-19. Trying to purchase another home where houses are scarce means you will be outbid by developers, high-income tech workers, and you also have to compete against the investors. Not a chance on getting something affordable as your current home probably is. Many are homeless today because of selling their home and looking for another, during which time their money ran out. It's best to keep our precious land, rent rooms, yard space, or do Airbnb for additional income. Apply for the senior, disabled, or veterans tax exemption. With land, you have options. Without it, not so much. And Tony, I do want to say that, we need to start thinking about our property as more than just our homes. We need to actually think about them as land, the valuable commodity that it is. That's why everybody wants it. That's why everybody's trying to get it. It's very scarce around here in Seattle. So I'm encouraging everybody to hold on to their precious property. We have tips and strategies that can help you stay in your homes. You could contact me. You can reach me on Facebook.
Thank you, Ms. Holland. Again, you're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio .world, our special every Friday presentation of the impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities. This week, we're taking a look at what I'm calling predatory buying. And that is pressuring folks, as you heard Ms. Holland just described. And in particular, we're talking about elderly folks and Black community members to sell their homes, and under a number of different ways. Again, there are others who may consider this to be just simply taking advantage of the market and of the timing. And we're going to have folks on the air today who will share their opinions with you, and they may disagree with some of these things. You know how we get down on Street Beat. We have open, honest conversation. Also joining us, I mentioned earlier, Cynthia Andrews is currently the Senior Marketing Communications and Advocacy Manager at, am I saying this right, Homage, Senior Services Agency in Snohomish County. She's worked in the field of aging since 2006, serving as a Senior Center Director in the Central area for 7 years, and in the healthcare industry for adults 65 and older. Ms. Andrews, your feedback again briefly as I'm introing everybody on the show, and my term is predatory buying. Can you share your interest in being on the show and what you see and where you fit into this whole scenario and why you wanted to be part of this program?
Thank you, Tony, for having me. I have been working in the central area for about 10 years before I moved back here to Snohomish County. And I saw it firsthand. It's not new, unfortunately. When I was a senior center director, many of the folks that lived in the central area were being targeted at that time. The folks were knocking on their doors, offering them checks. Because of the lack of technology that many people have, they don't know, they don't have the information that could help them stay in their homes or save their homes. So they were selling at a moment's notice without family being involved and such. And so now that now we're in this pandemic and it has just completely increased and exacerbated. I'm really sad to see that it's happening the way that it is, but people are operating on fear, and the developers and folks are taking advantage of that with our older adults. And this is a very vulnerable population, and they need to be stable. It's sad enough already that they're already isolated because of mobility, transportation, and such. But now they're also super isolated because their families cannot get to them, and they don't have that technology to share the information. So people are being preyed upon, and it's really sad. And I want to do all that we can to help.
Thank you. And I know we have some time constraints here. Some folks are going to be joining us later. Councilmember Zahilay, you have to leave at 1:30. Is that correct?
1:45.
Okay. And I'm going to go to, I think joining us now also is King County Assessor John Wilson. Mr. Wilson, are you on the line?
Yes, I am, Tony B. Good to be there.
King County Assessor John Wilson was reelected unopposed in 2019 and has earned the praise of people both inside and outside of King County as one of the most innovative and forward-thinking managers in local government. Working with community organizations, Wilson urged Olympia to pass the most significant senior property tax relief in decades. As a result, thousands of new applicants are able to stay in their homes. I'm going to be asking you about some of these programs and giving you the opportunity to share information about what folks can do if they're facing the potential of losing their homes. And King County Assessor, Mr. Wilson, I know that you just joined in, but I'm giving all of the guests the opportunity to weigh in on what I'm calling predatory buying. And how that is impacting and affecting our communities in the Central District and South Seattle that are being gentrified and what that looks like for the future. And then again, there is the opposition view that this is simply capitalism doing what capitalism does. The market is making it such that, again, you might say people are afraid, people are fear, they want money. And so people are coming in and saying, look, I got money, I'll buy your property. And it's just a business transaction that people are doing. We did hear about the pressure of what the difference in that makes. But as the King County Assessor, you are certainly aware that there are folks who are in danger of losing their homes for being late on taxes. So I'd like you to weigh in right now on what I'm talking and what I'm calling predatory buying and your position on it as King County Assessor or personally.
Tony B, thanks so much. Look, man, I totally agree with you that it is predatory, straight up. There are way too many people out there now that think there's an opportunity here, and they're going to try to do hot flips with people who they think are in trouble. We've taken a couple of steps to try to help with this. One is, as you mentioned in the introduction, we got passed a change to the senior exemption law last year that raises the economic threshold up to $58,400, and that will hopefully allow a lot more people to get involved. But we also, part of what we hope to do through networks like you've got, and that is reach out to community and let people know help is out there. We can help lower your property taxes. The senior exemption can reduce your property taxes from anywhere from a couple $100 a year to literally thousands of dollars a year, and it can make a difference literally in whether or not you can stay in that house. And so we've got a phone number you can call, area code 206-296-3920, or you can go online to tax relief, all one word, .kingcounty.gov, and you can file online there. And actually, we prefer if people can file online because it'll get you through the program. We've got a tremendous backlog of applications, but it's something that we feel really strongly needs to be pushed out into the community so that people can take advantage of it. The other thing is we urge you, check out our website for what we have as your property value. By the way we set values, we run roughly a year behind. But if you see somebody coming in at you hard and fast to make an offer and it's below what our value is, you ought to hit the stop button right away and say, wait a minute, that can't be right. And ask yourself, why are they doing this? Ruby and I have talked in Girmay as well about this, and Chukundi, that, there's an exploitation going on of the community. It's sadly not new, but it's taking on new permutations in the wake of COVID-19, where they think they've got people scared and they're going to squeeze them, and they're going to squeeze them hard, and they're going to squeeze them fast. And the trouble is we just haven't done a very good job of protecting people from that. I've talked to the prosecutor and said, look, if we can determine in some of these cases that actually people have engaged in deceitful, deceptive practices with you, and I've talked to the Attorney General Bob Ferguson about this, we want to go after those people criminally, because to me, that's just the same as if they held a gun to you and stuck you up. It's a way of robbing you of the fundamental worth of your home.
All right, thank you. You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio .world. Also joining us on the line here, Chukundi Salisbury. Chukundi, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
got you. Chukundi Salisbury's service and career as a contributing member to the community of Seattle and Greater King County, specifically the 37th District, spans more than 3 decades of dedicated presence, participation, and duty. A lifelong environmentalist, communicator, and community representative, Chukundi has demonstrated his commitment by building consensus, showing vision, and following through with the implementation to deliver results. Chukundi, you have been a leader in making this issue something that has and needs to and will continue to come to the forefront. I'm not sure when you joined, but what I'm doing is I'm giving folks an opportunity here to talk about why this issue is important to them. Again, you may have at this point heard me refer to it as predatory buying. Not everybody thinks of it that way. The impact that this could have on our communities in regards to our elders, in particular, folks coming after Black elders who live in the Central District in South Seattle. I know that you've been doing some work on this. I'm going to have to go to break here in about 1 minute. I'm also going to welcome to the show Lynda Green, and then I'm going to have a conversation with Girmay before our Councilmember Zahilay before he has to leave. So I just want to kind of set the stage here. So I'm going to go to break right now. When we get back, I'm calling him Kun.
It's all good. That's my community name. I mean, I'm kind of burned to the two. So go ahead. It's all good. Chukundi or Kun, it's all good.
When we get back, we will continue discussion. We will bring on the other members on our panel, and we will dive much deeper into this conversation. You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. If you know someone who is potentially in this position, call them and tell them this is happening. There are a number of ways you can listen and watch this broadcast. Through our app, through our website, through TuneIn, through all you got to do is tell Alexa, she'll hook you up. You can watch on our app, you can watch on Facebook, and then when it's all said and done, you'll be able to retrieve this information from our archives, download it for free, or you can just watch again for free and listen for free. The important thing is that we get the word out with this incredible group of panelists that we have joining us right now. We'll be back in about 3 minutes on Rainier Avenue Radio.world to further this discussion about what I'm calling predatory buying in our communities.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not shouting, "Badia!" at city council meetings, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
This is Karen Z with Rainier Avenue Radio.world, and we want to hear from you. Our goal is to amplify and share the diverse voices of Southeast Seattle residents. Do you know of an engaged community member who should be featured in a community spotlight? Tell us about them. Do you know of an upcoming family-friendly, educational, or cultural event coming up? Tell us about it. If you have news to share, contact us by emailing rainieravenueradio.world@gmail.com. Once again, please email us at rainieravenueradio.world@gmail.com.
If you live in King County and you pay property taxes, and if you're 61 years of age or older and make less than $58,000 a year, you need to listen to what we're talking about right now. Do you know about the exemptions and deferrals for senior citizens? For more information, call 206-296-3920 or email exemptions.assessments@kingcounty.gov. That's 206-296-3920. Tune in to Rainier Avenue Radio to find out what you can do to prevent predatory home buyers from taking advantage of minority homeowners in the hopes of landing prime real estate to develop. Join us on Friday, the 29th from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. for this vital discussion. Join us on Friday. We'll be giving you messages all month long in support of keeping and maintaining your home and advice that you can get all month long about how you can qualify for property tax exemptions. Tune in to Rainier Avenue Radio to find out what you can do to prevent predatory home buyers from taking advantage of minority homeowners in the hopes of landing prime real estate to develop. The news on Rainier Avenue Radio.world, your community resource for current information.
Hey, this is Kendra. Join me in the Rainier Avenue Radio News team Mondays at 6 p.m. and Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m.
Your community radio station, your community news. Get current, updated information. Look, we just tell you what's going on. You decide for yourself. Live news on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Your source for information. Anchored by Kendra Leon. The news on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. What's happening in your community? 6 o'clock on Mondays, 6:30 on Wednesdays. Your local community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio. What's going on in Burien? What's going on in Bellevue? Mercer Island. Okay, well maybe not Mercer Island. No one brings it locally to you like that.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Welcome back to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. It's me, Tony B. This is our special Friday edition of the impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities. The impact on the U.S. economy is that it's struggling, and it's struggling to come back from the coronavirus. One area that's proved surprisingly strong, housing. And pushed by low mortgage rates, real estate in a number of cities is selling nearly as briskly as it was before COVID-19. And it's changed the social landscape. Homes are actually selling quickly, and in some cases for sums that are often over the asking price. In this process, whether you want to call them house flippers or people who are taking advantage of opportunity, are contacting members of our Central District and South Seattle communities, pressuring them to sell their homes. Some people may look at it as differently. Some people may look at it as they're offering them opportunity for folks who may be able to cash in while this is taking place and move somewhere else, maybe move to their retirement home or something like that, if this is not where they want to be. Again, these are the things that we're discussing here that some are calling tactics. And so I'd introduced Chukundi Salisbury just prior to the break. And Chukundi, I'd like you to weigh in on your thoughts about what I'm talking about here. Chukundi?
He's on mute. Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Got you.
Okay. Yeah. So, I am on the same pathway and stance as the rest of most of the panelists so far. It's definitely predatory, but honestly, I've been in my house for 23 years and we've always got, letters, maybe a card here, but the door knocks, again, in one of the stories I put out, one of my neighbors got candy on her doorstep because they noticed she has little kids. And so, those types of things, it's just taking it up a notch higher. It's definitely predatory. And they are trying to reach out to people in this moment of anxiety with the pandemic. And so, yes, I agree with that. And I'm working on, various items and ways that we can combat that. Because honestly, some people, I do know a couple that's lived here for 30 years, their kids are grown, they want to move back to Mississippi and they want to sell their house for the highest price. As an African-American couple. And, what I'm saying to folks is, in fact, do your research, and nobody should sell their house under duress or uneducated about the process. So, and what their land is truly worth. And then my selfish take on all of this is, I don't want to be taxed out of my home. I'll be retired soon one day. And he just built $2 million houses next to mine within a block, 2 blocks away. And so, this is a real issue for our current elders, and it will be an issue for when I become an elder. And so, definitely I agree with you, and I'm working hard on it right now.
Okay, and there's a couple other people that I want to get to here, but Councilmember Zahilay, before you go, you've heard your constituents, you've expressed your position on this. As a leader in the community, as a person who this is happening in your district. A couple of things. Again, this is a personal decision for some folks, but again, we're talking about a high pressure situation where people can be coerced. What can you do? What can be done? What can community do to share with someone in your position about how to handle this situation. Because again, some of this is personal choice, but then you have folks who are very adamant about, look, we need to consider how we're shaping or reshaping our community.
Well, community is dealing with the consequences of politicians and business makers. So I'm going to put the burden on us first. And one thing I'll say is that left-leaning politicians like myself tend to support density or upzoning. And by the way, for listeners who don't know that kind of jargon, upzoning means taking an area that's currently zoned for fewer people to live to one where more people can live. So one example is going from single family houses to apartment complexes. Yes, we want more people to have housing, and increasing the housing stock to apartment complexes is a good way of getting more people housing. However, we have to do that with a racial equity lens. If we are upzoning areas where primarily Black people live, you are threatening their livelihood because you could increase their property taxes and displace them by doing that. So we have to increase density in a thoughtful way, not just indiscriminately, and especially if we're upzoning areas where the historical Black population in Seattle lives, that's not okay. So King County Council does not have zoning and land use power over the Central District. Yes, that's my district, but we don't have that authority. That's Seattle City Council and the mayor. So I'll give you an example of what we're trying to do out in Skyway, where we do have zoning and land use power, and where we have the highest proportion of African Americans who live now in light of the displacement of the Central District. In Skyway, first of all, we're not doing any upzoning because we don't want to displace people. And as a matter of fact, we're actually doing some down zones, meaning we're taking some areas that are zoned for commercial use and making sure that they're not inviting big businesses, but more family-sized businesses, so that we are not inviting speculative developers and pushing people out through cost of living hikes. We're also making sure that the areas that are already zoned for apartments and multifamily housing are have affordability requirements. So anybody who is going to come in and build an apartment complex where something is already zoned for that, they have affordability requirements built into that. So I want to make sure that elected officials are fighting for racial equity as they think about land use and zoning. And that's one way we can protect our communities out in the Central District and across King County.
So when you talk about land use and zoning issues, how much does the general public, how much do your constituents actually get to weigh in on these decisions? And then just, again, you know how we get down here, have an open, honest, frank conversation. Is this something that the community considers important? Do you see this as something other than just maybe a couple of folks on this panel that the community is concerned about?
The community is concerned about it and cares about it and wants to engage when they know about it. And I actually got called out on this recently, and this is a place for improvement for our office, where a hearing notice went out to Skyway residents that described some zoning changes, and it was written in a way that even I couldn't understand it. And somebody reached out and said, you have plans for our community and you're sending us documents that don't even make sense, that aren't in plain language. So immediately once we heard that, we organized a town hall for people to listen to what these terms mean, what these plans are in plain language. And we're also planning to do it in more than just English, so that everybody can understand what's going on. And yes, we take everybody's feedback, not just as words, but actually helping us shape that vision. So we as government need to do a better job of making this process more inclusive and giving people a big heads up about changes that are coming, and not doing these kinds of changes in secrecy.
Again, you're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. It's me, your host, Tony B. This is our special Friday broadcast of the impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities. I think I just had another guest join us, Cynthia Andrews. Cynthia, are you there?
I am here. I've been here. I think you're talking about Lynda Green, who just joined us.
I
Okay.
think you might be
Oh,
talking about
oh,
me.
Linda. I'm
Yeah. Hi,
sorry.
how are you? How,
I was thinking Linda, and I said Cynthia. My apologies.
it's okay. Cynthia is my sister, so it's perfectly okay.
Linda, again, I don't gonna be too redundant, but some stuff bears repeating. We've been talking about what I'm calling predatory buying, and I'm asking everyone to initially weigh in on their thoughts on this because there are different opinions about what this is, what this looks like, and what it means to community. So why have you chosen to participate on this show? And I'd like you to weigh in on this concept of, again, what I'm calling predatory buying that is impacting communities in the Central District in South Seattle, that is affecting leadership from, or excuse me, expecting impacting our elders, and at the end of the day, getting people out of neighborhoods that they grew up in, that they have considered traditionally home.
So thank you very much for that question. And it's a really, really important question that we deal with here at the Southeast Seattle Senior Center. We deal with this on a daily basis. Um, Many of the seniors who come to our center are what we refer to as older seniors, usually in the age group of 80 and above. Many of the members are primarily female. They have been in their homes for over 50 or 60 years. And what we see happening now is they are being bombarded with letters of interest from realtors who want to purchase their property. And the difficulty there is that the seniors primarily living alone without the support of their family members to help them understand what this process looks like, they're looking to us for direction. So there's a definite need that we need to be able to have a platform where we can support seniors who have been approached to sell their property. They are in need of legal advice and also some emotional counseling. And unfortunately, as a senior center, we can only do so much. We do provide classes, but what they really need is one-on-one counseling. And unfortunately, again, that's just something that we don't have the resources to provide to them. I can tell you that at least once a week, we get a call from someone who has been approached by, and I agree with your language, a predatory lender who wants to purchase their property. And it's difficult for them. They're afraid that if they sell, this is what would happen. If they don't sell, this is something else that's happening. And most of the language that's used when they are approached, it's very threatening language. Well, if you don't do this, and what are you going to do 5 years from now, 2 years from now, when you can't sell your home? And so they're afraid. They're in a situation where they're afraid to make a decision because they don't have enough information to make a decision that's beneficial for them.
Thank you. And I'm going to open up the floodgates here for everybody to start weighing in on some of the commentary here in a bit. But I'm going to go back to our King County tax assessor, Mr. Wilson, and I'd like you to do just set the groundwork here for one scenario. Everybody doesn't own a home. Everybody doesn't know the process of owning a home. We do know that there are these things called property taxes that we're constantly asked to vote on a number of different things, whether it be education or whatever, where property taxes increase. Can you explain in simple terms here how it is that someone can own a home, have owned a home for 20 years, 30 years, but still lose their home to city government?
Yeah, I wish I didn't have to explain this, Tony B, but it happens, especially what we've seen down in Southeast Seattle is a lot of cases. And it's like what Lynda just mentioned. You have people that bought their house 40 years ago. They maybe paid $35,000 for it now, but it happened to have a view of Mount Rainier or something. And today that little 1,200 square foot bungalow is now, according to market values, worth like $1.5 million almost. Mm-hmm. And we, by law, have to set values based upon what the market is, what is the highest and best use. Now, there's some exceptions and variations to that. But what that has meant, especially in areas like the CD in Southeast Seattle, is those were generally considered lower value properties. As property values elsewhere in the city have gone up, they've become a ripe target for especially speculators to come in. Some just, if you will, want to bring density, and like Girmay, I agree that we need to look at that, but in a sensible way. But it also has really opened up it where seniors find themselves going, man, my mortgage was never more than $250 a month, and I paid it off years ago. My property taxes are now like $1,000 a month, and my total Social Security is $1,800 a month.
Exactly.
You can't make that math work. And that's in part why we pushed so hard to get the senior exemption changed and to try to reach out. One of the things that has pained me is there is a tremendous number of senior homeowners in Southeast Seattle who simply don't know they might be eligible for the program. And that's what's so important about programs like you're doing right now, is to get that word out to people that help is there and we want to help you. It's something that's a right of yours to have property tax relief. If you've lived in this community and invested and been a part of this community for all these years, we got to give back to you a little bit. The other thing, frankly, we ought to look at is a homestead exemption to encourage things. One of the things I'm disturbed by, I was chief of staff to former executive Ron Sims, and Ron tells a compelling story about how when he lived in Spokane and was growing up, because his parents were able to buy a house, albeit in the era of redlining, and redlining, let's be honest, still exists today. But the fact that Ron's parents could buy a house, they built equity that allowed him and his brother to go to college. And part of what we need to look at, how do we rebuild home ownership in the Black community and look at different tools to provide that opportunity. So that
I'm going to give you an opportunity to say those things, but right now my question is, can you explain how it is or what that process is that causes people to lose their homes? Essentially, you know how this works. If you don't pay your taxes in 3 years, the city takes your, explain how that works and why that how that happens.
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry I got off the track, but I'll get back on, Tony. So what it is it's called a foreclosure or a tax foreclosure. It's a little bit different than a foreclosure from a lender, but if you've missed 3 years of property tax payments, the Treasury's office, not the assessor, but the Treasury's office comes in and puts your house up for sale, literally on an auction block down at the county administration building.
And there are people who literally wait and share this list to go after the people who are on this list. Is this list made public?
Yeah, it is. By public disclosure law, they're required to publish this. And there's a whole group of especially sort of these predatory buyers that you talked about, Tony B, that get that list. And then frankly, they gather like jackals down on the 4th Avenue side of the county administration building. And they wait to see what properties are up and how much they're willing to pay for them. And then they grab them, and then they view that it's now theirs, and they try to hustle you out of that property as soon as possible. And they don't give a damn where you go, but they own it. You get out of there, it's mine. And that's something that we've got to fix too.
So John, can I interject in, again, this is Lynda Green again speaking. One of the concerns that I have, and first of all, if no one has ever witnessed that downtown, that's an experience. You need to witness that, because when you talk about they're just like vultures and animals who are just, trying to eat the raw meat, in essence, it's what it comes across as being. But if we know that what the rules are, if we know what the laws are in terms of the Treasury's office, it makes sense to me that we need to look at some steps that we can put in place that will prevent a home from going into this 3-year period whereby property taxes are not being paid. And I am again advocating for the seniors, because seniors, I would imagine, if you looked at the statistics, the majority of homes going into that sort of foreclosure, as you say, are probably senior homes where they've been in their homes for 30, 40, 50 years. And in my mind, that's just unacceptable. And the fact that that may happen to be the current law, the fact that we continue to let this go on, that's just reprehensible in my opinion. And I think we need to do whatever we need to do to make sure that does not happen to the seniors in our communities. And I just don't see that happening right now.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Linda, I totally agree with you. I mean, we ought to look at one of the things that we could change in state law is how that whole tax foreclosure process works. We also ought to set up a safeguard, and there are some already. There's some foreclosure assistance programs that are available, but something that is a buffer from people losing their houses, and also make it easier for taxpayers to set up payment plans without also incurring huge penalties and interest things that make it a no-win situation. Those are some of the things that we should do when the legislature convenes again in January.
I mean, it doesn't work when you don't have a lot of money and then you get behind and then you charge astronomical interest rates on top of that. If we're talking about, again, reasons why people may consider selling their homes who are elderly, when you're facing all the increases in property taxes. Again, you're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Before we go to break, I want to give some of our other guests joining us an opportunity to weigh in on that. I'm going to kind of have to play, traffic cop here because there's so many folks. But does anybody else, Chukundi, Cynthia, I don't know if our Councilmember Zahilay is still on the line. Does anybody else want to weigh in on this before we go to break?
I definitely would like to. I think that some of the reasons, we don't realize the reasons why seniors may get behind in their taxes. Sometimes they may not make it to the mailbox. Some of their mail may not be read for 3 months. Therefore, when someone is there to help them read their mail, they're already 3 months behind in their payment because of some memory issues or access. It's like that. And unfortunately, they get into the situation and they need some extra support, and there are not enough programs that will help one-on-one them read their mail, them help pay their bills and such.
Go ahead.
We had given a few workshops at the senior center on 30th year before last, and then last year, when the old tax exemption was in effect, you had to make under $40,000 a year. Not that many people could could qualify for that. And so nobody tried, really, to be honest with you. So, now that the limit is raised to $58,423, a lot of people qualify. But, it's also the problem of getting people to know that that's available. And, for an older person, that what we're trying to recommend, and, it's hard because we're used to living in our homes by ourselves and wanting to live in our homes by ourselves, but, renting rooms or to a family member that's priced out, if you do have one that is responsible, or I'm serious because, that's been a problem too with seniors having, youngsters that are actually taking their money too. So, if you could find one that's responsible, or even if you could rent a room to a homeless senior, because there's a lot of seniors out there now that are homeless, many more than we'd ever want to think. And they're made homeless because one increased too many with their Social Security checks. They have Social Security, but their checks don't go that far. And they can't afford these rents out there. So if they could partner up with a senior that's actually, experiencing, she needs a little extra income and she's by herself and she maybe wants some companionship. If we could get some type of situation going where that would be possible too. One last thing I'd like to say about people selling their homes. They are giving classes now to where they're teaching people how to rip off seniors. There's a lot of these classes. And, I've often wondered, how can a person sell their CD home, but not be able to afford with the money they get to purchase another home in the CD? And it's because they're getting too much little money for their home. And they really can't afford to buy one too much anyplace else with with our housing market out, the way it is. It's not that they're making bad choices when they sell their homes, because that's something we've been doing for a while, selling them and moving to another home or getting another place to stay. Just that in this environment, it's just not working out. The money's not working out, and the developers, the investors, and everybody else is not giving you a good price on your home. Some real estate agents are also cheating seniors, but I think that if you are going to sell your home, you're better off with a trusted real estate agent, if you could find one that you trust, because they're wanting to get the most money that you could get for your home, because that's what their commission is based off of. Do not sell your home to somebody that doesn't want you to list it, because then you just can't get the money. And there's a lot of times now, people, if they list their home, they will get multiple offers, many times more than it's worth. The tech workers that really want homes, they will offer you a lot of cash money over and above what your asking price too. So you just have to have somebody to help you put it out there. If you do want to buy that home, like Chukundi said, and move down to Mississippi, you have a plan, someplace to go. But if you're just selling your home just because somebody asked you to, and you think you're going to be able to go live someplace else, every place is going up on rent. The senior apartments go up once a year too. So it's just different. It's very difficult.
All right. One second here. I'm going to go to break here really quickly, and I'll give you a chance to weigh back in. And when we come back, we're going to talk about, again, we're going to continue to talk about this issue. We're going to talk about what can be done. But then also King County Assessor Wilson, when we come back from this next break, if you can be prepared to share with seniors things that they can do to offset some of the stress and the potential of losing their property through foreclosure, and what some of these changes are to start this next segment, that would be great. We'll be back on Rainier Avenue Radio to talk more about what we're calling predatory home buying right after this.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not being reprimanded by traffic cops, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Rainier Avenue Radio, your community radio station.
This is Cindy Bright, the host of Heartbeat Radio.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star
This
Time.
is Paul Schneiderman today on the 73rd edition.
Hey,
of
y'all,
Sports Stuff
welcome
on
to
Rainier
Traveler's
Avenue
Guide to
Radio.
Venus and Mars with Princess Rob.
Alicia Ferry Von Mother. You guys know me.
Dirty Harry.
Your home for information about the impact of the coronavirus.
Amongst many things that's difficult about this virus is that it prevents
it's been devastating. There are really heartbreaking stories of people who have.
There isn't anyone that isn't impacted.
Shutting our schools down, including all athletic programs.
Your first-hand accounts.
We got here took the test, and I found out that I was positive.
A lot of people who know me, I'm still the first person they know.
But it was almost like you were patient zero for South Seattle. Your stories of community coming together.
Partner very heavily with Tacoma Urban League, who is doing some amazing work in response.
We're doing things for small businesses. We're giving out loans for small businesses.
And so I think it's very important that we have leaders who feel the pressure.
I mean, I cannot tell you, we're calling 20, 30, 40 members.
This crisis in our community, we've been working to address it.
Rainier Avenue Radio, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
DJ Dirty John.
It's Karen Z with Rainier Avenue Radio.
Hey, this is Sergio Cool. Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Rainier Avenue Radio.world. We got you covered. Local impact, global presence.
Broadcast. Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio.world and our weekly coverage of the impact of the communities. Continuation of our series. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us again here. And then again, now we are aware of the fact that we are and more folks listening to that.
Wanawari and Langston proudly present 206 The Break, a Seattle hip-hop live stream series. Each DJ set will be presented in a live stream program hosted by 2 local hip-hop luminaries who will bring their unique insight and the local culture and music scene of the era represented in the episode. For more information, go to wanawari.org, langstonseattle.org, or on our Facebook pages. Made possible with funding support from For Culture and the City of Seattle Office of Arts and Culture.
Would you like to see when your favorite Rainier Avenue Radio show comes on? Check out our show schedule, updated weekly at rainieravenue.radio.world.
All right, welcome back to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. It's me, Tony B. This is our special Friday edition of the impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities. Discussion, if you're just joining us, has been surrounding what we are calling predatory buying, house flippers, investors, folks who are looking to purchase property is offering over market value for these properties. As I mentioned before, the impact of the coronavirus is shredding and damaging the economy. One of those areas, though, that has managed to be consistent and even grown is housing. We're going to continue this conversation. I'd like to start it off, and I think Chukundi was about to weigh in, and I'll definitely give you the first shot to do that. But first, joining us again is King County Assessor John Wilson. Can you lay out, you may have heard me mention it earlier in one of the commercials that we're running, about what seniors can do if you're under 60, if you're over 61, if you're making less than $58,000 a year. What are some of the things that seniors can do to offset the potential of losing their house or mortgage, or being in a situation that's just underwater, where a house you purchased 30, 40 years ago, the mortgage was basically nothing, and your property taxes now are triple, double, maybe even quadruple what your mortgage was?
Yeah, so Tony B, what we urge people first is to contact us about getting enrolled in the senior exemption program. Again, the phone number is 206-296-3920. There's also a website that'll take you through and answer critical questions, help you gather up the forms and that. Depending on what your income level is, that can really reduce your taxes. And you can also go back 3 years. Which in particular can help you if you're on the verge of a tax lien foreclosure. If you can go back and reduce those taxes and then work with the Treasury office and see if you can set up a payment program, that helps people stay in the program. Then getting on the senior exemption program. Now, right now we've got a huge backlog because we've had literally more people in the first quarter of the year apply for the exemption than we normally have in an entire year. And we're having to work remotely, and we're working through them as fast as we can. But people shouldn't worry that, if you will, when we approve you, you're qualified going back to the first of the year or whatever. So it's not like I only am going to get it for half the year if I get it after June 1. No, you get it for the full year. But that would be one of the first and foremost things. Then also, if you're already in arrears on your taxes, talk to the Treasury office and ask them for how they can help you somehow structure payments. Their number is 206-263-2890. That's again 206-263-2890. Now, you're right. Tony B, you mentioned this earlier. One of the problems is once you get behind, how do you ever catch up? But that's where also there are outside, and you can Google it. I don't have it right at my fingertips, but we've worked with a number of community-based foreclosure assistance programs that will come in and help pay part of that property tax that you owe to get you out of jeopardy and that to give you a shot to get stabilized in that. And so those are all things that a homeowner can do to try to keep that home.
All right, Chukundi, were you about to weigh in before we went to break?
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to weigh in on, Tony, is, and this is on the heels of what Ms. Ruby was talking about really knowing the value of your property. One of the things I've been working on with some real estate professionals is learning the value of your property through a commercial market assessment. Many people sold their homes and thought they got a good deal, right? They looked online They, like the assessor mentioned, checked the value of their property. Perhaps they looked at his estimate, but they really didn't understand that they were in fact living in an upzoned area, right? That what's the commercial value of that, right? So yes, your house, in selling it as the house that it is, has this one value. However, if you were to raise the house to the ground and put up a 6-story apartment building, that gives the property an entire additional value, right? And so one of the things that I've been speaking to elders about, and people in the community, also real estate agents, is are they available to give free commercial market assessments on property? That's one of the things that we can do right now, right? Is that allow people to get that free advice regardless of what they want to do, right? So yes, a real estate agent will help you get the best price because they are price driven. But I think what we really need, and one of the things I'm fighting for, is commercial market assessments, especially in Southeast Seattle. If you look at the upzone map, all of Martin Luther King, I would contend 20 years from now, like I live 2 blocks off of MLK, there's probably going to be large apartment buildings just a block from me, which will affect my property value. And I want to make sure that my neighbors and others in the community get a true assessment of their property, because density is coming one way or another, and we want to make sure that people are compensated fairly. The other piece with that, Tony, that I really want to talk about is allowing people to return into the community in a way that maintains that diversity. You know, in my block, I want to see that diversity maintained. The last thing that I think is very important, and I've talked with the assessor Wilson about this, is that I would like to fight for, and I know it's going to be an uphill battle, but we really need to look at the uniformity clause in the tax code. And we need to tax people on their property value based upon the income that they have coming in, especially if it's an owner-occupied property. Myself, you know, I plan on making more than the exemption in retirement. However, I'm not going to be Bill Gates in retirement. So how does a person that makes more than $58,000, but obviously less than millions of dollars, how does that person as well plan to be able to keep their property in the future, right? And so that's what I mean, and that's really one of my selfish elements of this campaign. I'm fighting hard for our seniors right now through my this home is not for sale campaign, but I'm also fighting for my future self. You know, when I turn, you know, whatever, and I decide to retire, I don't want to be taxed out of my home. So those are the 3 things that I think are really important. Getting that commercial market assessment, because many of our people are living in those upzoned areas. We need to know what the true value is. 2, you know, we need to make sure that whatever upzoned property comes into the community, we have the right level of affordable housing in there to allow community to return. We can't just continue to build buildings with rents of $3,000 and $5,000 for a studio, right? And then 3rd, we need to look at that uniformity clause in the future to be able to tax people accordingly so they can pay their fair share to our civilization, our city here, however, not be taxed out of their home.
You know, the one thing missing from this conversation is a developer. And that perspective here. Before I ask a question, does anybody else want to weigh in on this or provide any perspective before I move on?
Yeah, Tony, it's Lynda again. I would like to comment again on both of the comments that were made earlier. I recognize the importance of long-term planning, but my immediate concern is what are we going to do today, tomorrow, to help seniors keep their homes? I do believe the tax exemption program is very, very important. And unfortunately, many of our seniors are not taking part in participating in the program. So the question I ask is why? And we know that in the southeast end of Seattle, which is a diverse community, many of the seniors don't have access to computers. So now we're challenged with how do we get them involved? Do they have an advocate who's willing to walk them through the process so that they understand the simple, what I think of as a simple process of getting a senior tax exemption? So we can all sit here and talk about what we want to see and how what would be great for our community, all of which is very, very important. But I still go back to the main area of what are we doing today to help seniors maintain their property, help seniors have access or gain access to the exemption program, and what are we doing to prevent the folks from coming into the community and taking advantage of it. Another point that I do want to bring out also, particularly for the south end or southeast end of Seattle, is many of the homeowners are single or women. They've lost their husbands, and many of them are currently living alone. Now, keep in mind, if these individuals are somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 to 85, let's even say 75 to 85, many of them were married to their husbands during a period in time where they did not work outside of the home. So they are now living on their own Social Security, if you will, or they were working in jobs whereby they didn't even pay Social Security. We see a lot of that in our Asian community among our members as well. So the point is that I would love to see seniors have an office that advocates specifically for them. Because when they're trying to read this information and trying to interpret these documents, listen, I'm a college graduate, and there are times when I'm like, I don't know what the hell we're talking about here. So we just need to be able to hold their hands and offer them the help and support that they are entitled to. And I'm sure that sounds a little bit altruistic in the whole 9 yards, but I see it on a daily basis. I see how they're suffering, and I see the fear in their faces because they don't have a place where they feel like they're getting the help that they deserve and the help that they need. So,
Lynda, I would, I really appreciate what you said. I'd also like to say that, there's a lot of seniors that are suspicious and they don't want to work with the government, and we've had to work with that. But I have a group of seniors that still live in the CD. There's probably 50 on our list right now. It's a support group, and what we do is when the up zones first started, there was talk about it. I didn't want any senior blindsided. So I started emailing everybody about, what was happening, what was going on. And, I would be interested and willing to add to my email list. That list is going to be called Keep Your Habitat. And that I did start that list for people that didn't live in the CD, that are in the South End. I never had access to anybody in the South End until Mr. Girmay opened up a Facebook page for people in District 2 and District 3 and this radio program here. So, I would be interested if the seniors that you work with are not too suspicious of giving out up their email addresses, because that's the only way I can't get around good like I used to, but I would be able to email them. You, Girmay, Chukundi, all of us to get together and find the information that's relevant, that could give them accurate information on what their homes are worth. If it's upzoned, what a developer, if he could put a apartment building on the front yard, apartment building on the backyard, because there's a lot of people selling their homes and they're not getting paid for what the backyard is worth. They're just, they're leaving a lot of money off the table. So if somebody could help me get those figures, and if I can get the email addresses, I'll put them on there and I'll email them information. I can't be at their houses to interpret it for them, but I certainly would welcome them to contact me with any questions they had, about what I've sent them. So, that's the way. And, as a support group, we have a support group basically, and that's a way to get started. I don't know how to get the figures. If somebody could help me get those figures, I definitely give it to the people.
All right, I'm just going to let y'all, I'm going to leave the barn door open right now, let y'all continue to have conversation before I have to bring this back to a point really quickly here to get some final comments. The amazing thing about it is to be able to have a conversation like this that's easily understandable, but still contains the nuances. And I can't believe how fast 90 minutes went by. So I got about 3 or 4 minutes here. Y'all can just weigh in wherever you want to before we get to final commentary. Go ahead.
If I may, I think there's a layer that we haven't touched on yet because of the pandemic, the social isolation and social distancing, there's lack of services for older adults that we need to figure out how to get them to, because they're maybe afraid to open the door. There's not a lot of folks that want to come and interact and do that work. There's lack of technology. And if there is some kind of way that we can make sure that they have those advocates that can reach them in light of this pandemic.
If I could step in, you know, Cynthia, given what you're saying, and Lynda, what you touched on, part of what we would like to do is build relationships with community-based organizations to help reach out. We'd originally, before COVID-19 hit and we all got sort of locked in place, we had a fairly aggressive plan to actually go out to community and set up, you know, neighborhood meetings, literally sort of pop-up assessor offices. We've had to put all that on hold because of social distancing and that, but we really want to get back. We're aware that both, not everybody has a computer. We have also tried to be culturally sensitive, that different communities, there are language concerns, so we have information on the program available in a variety of languages that we can easily provide people. But we'd love to have whatever opportunities that you may see where we could work with you to get out, because to what also Ruby mentioned, we know, unfortunately, people don't trust government. You know, I will tell you, right after the
You got about 30 seconds, Assessor Wilson.
Right after the November 16 election, we stopped having people open the door when we came to their house, and we understand why that was.
Oh, okay. You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. This is our special Friday edition of the impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities. Our guest joining us are John Wilson, King County Assessor. Sure, is Girmay still here? Earlier on the show was Councilmember Girmay Zahilay, King County Councilmember Chukundi Salisbury, activist and political candidate. Marcus Green could not make it, and he really wanted to. Trust me on that. Something came up. Cynthia Andrews, and then also Lynda Green and Ruby Holland. I'm going to give everybody an opportunity here for final words on this discussion about predatory buying, what can be done, and what you would like folks to know in your final statement. Before we do that, at 2:30, James Reese is going to be joining us from Carey House, and we'll be talking about the impact of the coronavirus epidemic on faith and religious-based churches and organizations, and what they have done and what they have not done in regards to leadership during this pandemic. So at 2:30, you can stay tuned and get that perspective as well. So as we go into, again, this final stretch, I want to thank each of you for coming on here and making 90 minutes go so fast. It seems like we just got started. Each of you have provided a wealth of information, and so I encourage folks who are listening right now, because part of this is getting the word out, that get the word out to people. You can go back and listen to this on demand pretty much right after the show on Facebook and YouTube. You'll be able to listen to it streaming on our media broadcast networks, whether that be through our Rainier Avenue Radio app or through the TuneIn app, or just saying, Alexa, play Rainier Avenue Radio. You'll be able to go to our archives, get this, download it for free, and listen at your leisure and have a discussion, and maybe go back and develop some questions for some of these folks or some folks you may need to talk to. Having said that, I'd like to give everybody the opportunity for final words here. I'm going to have to hold you to about a minute and 30 seconds. What I've been doing right now is giving you some time to get your final thoughts together so I don't have to interrupt you, because I'll have to do that so that I can get everybody in. So I'm going to start off with Cynthia. Cynthia, thank you for coming on the show, and please share some final words with our audience.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I think that what I want to make sure that people know is that you can help. Our community members can help our older adults by just giving them a call, checking on them, making sure that they have access to different resources, but especially food. And if they identify that they're depressed, that's one of the reasons why people are selling so quickly, because of certain emotional things that are happening during this pandemic. And so I just want people to know that please check on your folks, make sure that they're okay. Even if you don't know them well and you live in their neighborhood, make sure that you can reach out and they have someone that they can talk to, and you can help them get technology set up, help them use their cell phone, help them read their mail, and help them to maybe even pay their bills. But you can help by just doing those things.
And King County Assessor, Mr. John Wilson, thank you for coming on the show and again participating in this open, honest, frank conversation. I hope you don't feel like you were attacked, but you were the guy who I needed to ask the questions to get answers from. And I'd like to give you the opportunity here to share final words as well.
Great. Thanks very much, Tony B. And no, I didn't feel attacked at all. Look, this is an incredibly important thing for the community, and we've got to all hang together and help each other. So again, I would say, if you think you might qualify for the exemption, call us, 206-296-3920, or you can go online to taxrelief.kingcounty.gov and look up what happens and contact us electronically. Send us a letter, although it takes a while, but it's 500 4th Avenue, room 708, Seattle 98104, and that. But the key here is to recognize help is available. Don't give up. And whether it's for yourself or you know someone who you think might need the help, please reach out to them and say, let me help you. Because I know in a lot of cases, also because of the generation we're dealing with, people are shy about talking about their economic situation. And this isn't something for them to be ashamed about or live in fear. It's something where let's us as a community come together and help each other.
And also, thank you. And also joining us, Ms. Lynda Green. Thank you for your commentary, and I want to give you the opportunity for final words here as well.
Thank you. Tony, it was a pleasure being here today, and I hope we've been able to reach out to seniors and friends of seniors to get the word out that we need your help. So thank you, Cynthia, for your words. You hit the nail on the head. John Wilson, thank you so much for offering the information that you offered. And Ruby, I hope that the two of us can certainly pair our resources so that we can begin to do the real work that has to be done in order to help our seniors. And thirdly, probably a shout out to the Southeast Seattle Senior Center. For any seniors out there or anyone who is listening, we are available to help you navigate through the system with regard to your taxes, with regard to food shortage, whatever your needs might be. Our phone number is 206-722-0317. We do have a social worker on staff. She's here 5 days a week, and she would certainly be more than willing to help you navigate the paperwork to begin to fill out the for your tax exemption. So thank you, everyone, and stay strong, stay healthy.
What's happening, Kun? Oh, he's not here anymore. Okay. And also, I want to make sure, of course, that we give an opportunity for Ruby. And Ruby, I intentionally saved you for last to kind of wrap this up in whatever your thoughts were because of the work that you've been doing surrounding this and your interest in making sure that this situation comes to light. So, Ms. Holland, opportunity here for you for final comments.
I just want to say to all the seniors out there, we know you're out there. We don't necessarily know where you are. You have to help us, help you. You have to reach out. I'm social distancing. I'm self-quarantined. I'm not going nowhere for a little while. Call me anytime. That my number is 206-350-1008. If you have access to email, you can email me at keepyourhabitat@gmail.com. You have to reach out, and believe me, I won't sell you anything. That's been the main thing on my agenda, was not to have anybody that I deal with sell anything to anybody, because that's a turnoff. And we want to work together. We want to have someplace that you could trust to just, have, your self-interest in mind. If you do go on Facebook, we do have an anti-gentrification site that Girmay opened up. It's just called Stop Gentrification, and you can get information there too. So just reach out, keep listening to this program. Make sure you have my number. Lynda and I are trying to get together and see if we could do some stuff together and help, make you guys comfortable.
All right. Well, thank you, Ms. Holland, and thank each of you for joining us. We're going to be doing another show in about a month on this same topic, and I appreciate everyone for joining us again. John Wilson, King County Assessor, Councilmember Girmay Zahilay, and Chukundi Salisbury, activist, political candidate. There was going to be a representative from the South Seattle Emerald here. Marcus got called away at the last minute and something that he really had to take care of. Cynthia Andrews, Senior Services, South Seattle. What is this? Cynthia, is it Homage? What can you tell me?
Homage, yes.
Homage.
I was gonna say that. I'm the marketing manager, so I need to make sure that clearly it's Homage Senior Services.
Okay, then it's just as it reads. I just decided to be a little sedity and try and make it something that it wasn't. So thank you, Cynthia. And then also Lynda Green, Southeast Seattle Senior Center. And of course, we just heard from Ruby Holland. You've been listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world and our special Friday broadcast of the impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities. Again, this conversation centered around what we are calling predatory buying. You may disagree with that. You can take that up with the people on this program and their perspectives on it. And again, I'd also be open to hearing your opinion in here on Rainier Avenue Radio. One of the things, again, that I mentioned was that we did not have a developer here. And everybody gets a seat at the table to share their perspective. Thank you all for joining us again. Remember, in about 3 minutes, James Reese is going to be here from the Carey House. He's a pastor, and we're going to have a conversation about the reaction of the faith, religious, and church community. There's a push now for churches to open back up, what that looks like, what that means. How have our faith communities responded to the larger community during this time? There was a time when the church was really the center of gravity, in particular for the Black community, and when it came to emergencies and crisis. So we're going to check in and see what that's looked like, what that's been on this next segment that starts here in about 3 minutes. Thanks everybody for coming, and we'll be back for being on the program, and we'll be back in about 3 minutes right after this.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
We got the feeling now?
Yeah. R&B, soul, funk, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. We give you all that and more on Star Time. Join me, Paul Pearson, for a 2-hour trip through the history of R&B. A new episode every week on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Come and get the feeling on Star Time on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Make Music Day Seattle happens June 21st, summer solstice, every year.
Make Music Day Seattle is part of the worldwide Make Music Day celebration.
Now, typically, this features free music, outdoor concerts, performances, music lessons, jam sessions, and musical events on streets, sidewalks, and parks.
We can't do that this year.
Make Music Day Seattle this year will be virtual.
Like the entire worldwide celebration.
Make Music Day Seattle and its virtual approach encourages all people, all music ability to celebrate the joy of making music. Rainier Avenue Radio will broadcast via live stream events held in Seattle community and around the world. Over 85 cities. Make Music Day Seattle, demonstrating the power of music to unite and uplift people. Highlights of Make Music Seattle.
Tiny bands marching through your tiny marching bands walking through the Seattle downtown waterfront. The vocalists walking and singing through downtown Seattle and Westlake Park.
Bash the Trash.
Bash the Trash offer innovative guitar and everyday refuge into musical instruments. Live from home. Make Music Alliance invites everyone to post a musical performance from home. For more Music Day Seattle virtual highlights, check the website at RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Women are not an homogenous group.
We face discrimination differently depending on factors such as ethnicity, age, socioeconomic status, and more.
Rainier Avenue Radio is proud to amplify women's voices.
They are the experts of their own lives, initiating conversations within their community about challenges they face, the solutions they're working on, and the opportunities they see.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 for Women's Voices on Air. We know our challenges. We are the experts of our lives.
We are master multitaskers, prioritizing our family, friends, and our faith above our own needs.
Our needs and voices are too often overlooked.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. for Women's Voices on Air.
We tell our stories in our own way.